This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
An attack on Mali military positions leaves at least 35 soldiers dead. World-famous Olympic champion Haile Gebrselassie explains why he wants to sue Facebook. And a crisis of road accidents in African countries, we explore why the death toll keeps rising. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Now, it is a clash of the big boys and the big names in the Rugby World Cup final today. CGTN correspondents will be bringing us updates from various locations as South Africa faces off with England in a repeat of the 2007 showdown. Well, joining us first of all is, of course, Mohamed Abubakar. He is in Nairobi following the action from the RFUA pitch here in Nairobi. Mohamed, what's going on there?
Thank you very much, Lindy. Yes, we are at the KRU grounds, Kenya Rugby Union grounds here in Kenya's capital. South Africa leading by 12-6 at half-time. I'm looking forward to actually joining you in a bit, tell you more about the reactions from the Kenyan rugby fans here who are rooting for South Africa.
Well, we do look forward to that in just a moment. But first, let's start with some other news making headlines across the continent. We begin in Mali, where at least 35 soldiers have been killed in a militant attack in the north of the country. Authorities fear the death toll could rise. The attack deals yet another blow to the country's military, which has the support of the French army and other international forces. Mali is seen as a stronghold for groups with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State links. The groups have been able to fan out across the Sahel, destabilizing parts of Niger and Burkina Faso. Just in September, 38 Malian soldiers were killed in coordinated attacks on 2 army bases in central Mali. Well, of course, fans are watching every second of this match between South Africa and the UK. Let's head back now to see the Kenyan rugby fans and to understand how they're enjoying this showdown. Of course, here in Nairobi, Mohamed Abubakar is keeping tabs on things. Mohamed, you told us the score. What is the reaction so far?
Thank you very much, Lindy. Aren't you a happy one right now? But fingers crossed, we have 40 more minutes for this particular game. We are at the Kenya Rugby Unions here in Nairobi, where Kenyans have turned out in numbers to support the Springboks of South Africa. Everyone is happy with how things are going so far. 40 minutes have been played in the final. What the fans are saying is that they're happy with how South Africa has managed to deal with England's physicality going into this final, because England are known for their physicality and, of course, the turnovers. They've managed to stop them at that tight defense. It's been an intense game throughout because we haven't had a try yet. It's been a game of kicks so far, and as we all know, throughout this tournament, South Africa have been very, very good, splendid when it comes to converting their penalty kicks, and so far South Africa have managed to convert 4 to England's 2. So if it continues to be a game of kicks here, South Africa stand a high chance of actually seeing this one off. But fingers crossed, 40 more minutes, and by the end of 80 minutes of rugby, we'll be able to know who is the champion. South Africa, of course, are on the verge of making it 3 out of 3 wins in Rugby World Cup finals. So hoping to see you again after the game and the result in favor of South Africa.
I'm hoping so too, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mohamed Abubakar, joining us there, of course, from Nairobi, where fans are enjoying the match. But perhaps other fans across the world not so happy with the results so far. Let's head over to London. Ollie Barrett joins us now. Ollie, what's the reaction so far to the score? It is half-time with South Africa in the lead.
Well, certainly England fans here are disappointed about the performance they've seen in the first half of this game. England fans here are also very much outnumbered here in Esher in Surrey. It's an English rugby club, but hundreds of South Africans, expats, have descended on Isha Rugby Club to watch the game together, and so far they're celebrating what has been an impressive performance from South Africa during the game so far, and the South African feel to the event here continues. We have over here we have biltong on sale, we have a braai going on. You can see that the bar has been doing brisk trade over here as well, despite the early start here, UK time. So a very South African feel to events here. We've got some South African fans who are really enjoying this game. And what's it like, guys, to be watching it with your fellow South Africans in England?
Oh, amazing, amazing. We've been here quite a long time, so to have the support, South Africa support in England is just awesome.
We are so proudly South African, honestly, and the footage and the videos and the updates and everything that we've had for the teams has been phenomenal. We are go Boko all the way, and we think the boys can bring the trophy home this year.
So you'll see there South African fans here very confident and very happy so far at how things are turning out.
Oh, thank you so much, Ali. Fascinating there to see so many South African fans in England. But of course, we know millions more backing the Springboks back home. Let's go now to Johannesburg, where CGTN's Julie Shire brings us the latest there of what's happening on the ground. Julie Shire, of course, we know there seems to be a lot riding on this particular World Cup. Talk to us about the mood back home in South Africa.
So, Lindy, the mood here is absolutely incredible. Sorry, we've got a bit of wind here, but the mood here with the fans is absolutely incredible. And obviously, we've had such bad news for South Africa in the last months. We've had gender-based violence. We've had xenophobic attacks. So the fact that everyone is coming together behind the box, but also as a nation, is absolutely critical at this point. And everyone here is hoping that South Africa can do this feat in Japan and bring back the title for a third time. So the atmosphere is absolutely incredible. There is a little bit of nail biting going on and people are a little bit apprehensive, but let's see how we get on in the second half. But the mood is simply amazing, and I think that if we do win, it's going to be incredible to see how this nation is going to come together. And it's going to be really just a massive party after this game if we do win. But as we know, we can never predict, Lindy.
Absolutely. And I suppose it does just remind us all of that victory back in 1995. Certainly a moment of nostalgia for South African fans. Thank you so much, Julie Shire, there with us in Johannesburg. We will keep following developments in the Rugby World Cup final, but for now, let's return to some other news making headlines around the continent. Let's start in Ethiopia, where the Olympic gold medalist Haile Gebrselassie is accusing Facebook of intensifying violence across Ethiopia by not preventing the spread of fake news. In the last week, the government reports that at least 78 people have been killed in protests in the Oromia and Harare regions. CGTN's Girum Chala spoke to the retired long-distance runner on why he now intends to sue Facebook.
Where it comes from, the idea about, to sue Facebook, look at what's happening recently here in Ethiopia. People are killing each other and hating each other. I have no comment about the good thing of Facebook. At the same time, what's happening here, people are using for a wrong way, which means they are posting, the untrue story, fake news. And then, the result, as you know, like a few days ago, like a week ago, we lost 78 lives. I didn't expect such kind of killing. Facebook, they have responsibility, especially for those fake news. That's why, I'm going to sue. Of course, I'm waiting for the government, the action of the government, what is going to be. Because they know the government of Ethiopia had the right, had the responsibility to protect, their people. At the same time, Haile Gebrselassie also had the responsibility, to protect my people.
Haile, I understand the fact that there are the situations that you've mentioned of violence and the death of people, but What evidence do you have at hand, or in general terms, to support your case against Facebook, that Facebook is the one to blame for some of the killings or violence that has happened in this country?
But I've seen those posting from friends, and some of the news, it comes from somewhere. For example, they are using the dead body from somewhere or the violence from somewhere, and they post as this happening here in Ethiopia. And then the next morning, the other part, the opposite or whatever, they come up, just with the sticks, with the knives, and with the different tools, to kill the others. That's what I've seen. This is the result of this fake news. No matter what I'm asking to the Facebook people, well, they have what they call it, the things, to control, the control method, the control tool, what they are doing in Europe and other countries. Why here in Ethiopia? Why not?
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Nigeria's parliament has called for the suspension of a military operation known as Operation Positive Identification. It is a nationwide initiative that would see soldiers randomly stop citizens and ask for their identification. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam reports from Abuja.
Several members of the House of Representatives spoke against the furtherance of the operation. They urged President Muhammadu Buhari to put a stop to it, especially as it's yet to be scrutinized by Parliament. They insist that it poses a threat to human rights.
My worry, Mr. Speaker, is that, just like the prayers have said, is that our rural people and Nigerians will be subjected to trauma, to suppression, as a result of this project that the army wants to embark on.
According to the army, the operation is part of efforts to combat criminal activities, including armed banditry, kidnapping, communal clashes, and cultism. The operation's success in the Northeast is spurring a countrywide expansion, but citizens are also skeptical.
It's nice so that we can identify ourselves very well in this country, but checking it the other way around is to know if the military wouldn't harass the citizens.
The military exercise is being faulted by several other groups, including the body of lawyers and human rights organizations. A kickoff date is yet to be announced, but with the backlash, the fate of the operation remains unclear. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Sub-Saharan Africa is the global capital for road traffic deaths. That's according to the World Health Organization's 2018 Global Status Report on Road Safety. The report goes on to say there's been little or no progress in reducing the number of deaths from road traffic incidents in low-income countries between 2013 and 2016. CGTN's Robert Nagila has more.
Globally, the number of road traffic deaths continued to increase, reaching 1.35 million in 2016. Road traffic deaths kill more people than tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS. A World Health Organization report estimates at current pace the target of halving road traffic deaths by 2020, one of the United Nations SDGs, will not be met. The report says there's a significant link between the risk of road traffic deaths and a country's income level. 13% of road traffic deaths occur in low-income countries. Yet, these countries are home to only 1% of the world's vehicles. Road traffic deaths in high-income countries average 8.2% per 100,000 people. In low-income countries, the average is 27.5% per 100,000 people. Now, according to the United Nations Special Envoy for Road Safety, Jean Todt, road accidents claim 650 people daily in Africa. To reverse this trend, governments have been urged to implement the Global Plan for the Decade of Action and the African Road Safety Action Plan. It details improved post-crash care, stronger road safety governance such as using seat belts, helmets, child safety seats, and prohibiting drunk drivers. Now, most of the fatalities involve car owners, but a significant number of those killed in road accidents are pedestrians. Back to you.
Now, here in Kenya, there is growing concern over the high number of pedestrian deaths related to road accidents. In the last 10 months, there's been a 16.3% increase in pedestrian deaths compared to the same period last year. The country's police chief has instructed his officers to ensure all traffic rules are adhered to, particularly as the festive season approaches. Once more, here's CGTN's Robert Nagila.
Joseph Ngege uses this stretch of the highway about 9 kilometers from the city center twice a day. Once in the morning on his way to work and in the evening on his way back home.
First of all, there should be a bridge here. Many drivers ignore the zebra crossing and people get knocked down.
Work on the footbridge in question began 2 years ago, but has since stalled. In much of the country, the situation is more or less the same. Motorists don't give way for pedestrians, the roads are not well marked, if at all, and there are very few footbridges on the highways. And the numbers make for grim reading. The National Transport Authority says pedestrians represented a large proportion of victims of road accidents. Between January and October this year, 1,049 pedestrians were killed in road-related accidents compared to 902 victims in the same period in 2018, representing a 16.3% increase. Part of the problem is the driving culture, with many motorists ignoring traffic lights and regulations altogether.
Crossing the roads in Kenya is risking your life. Motorists ignore zebra crossings.
The Inspector General of Police says enough is enough.
I've instructed the commanders to ensure that rules have to be obeyed.
On select highways, the Transport Authority has stationed traffic marshals to help pedestrians navigate traffic safely. But pedestrians also share blame. In instances where footbridges are available, I watched as some pedestrians chose to ignore them, darting in and out of traffic despite a police presence. But where there is none, despite zebra crossings, it is clear, as most people cross the roads, they have little faith in the person behind the wheel. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Meanwhile, Uganda loses approximately 10 people every day in road traffic accidents, which is the highest level in East Africa. To tackle the problem, authorities are intensifying efforts to ensure more drivers are using the roads properly. Leon Sanyange reports.
It has been 3 weeks of learning. For Genevieve Apio, the driving lessons at this school have been an exciting experience.
It's not difficult. It's only about putting much effort in getting what the instructors are telling you.
Apio cannot wait to get onto the road on her own. After passing her test, she will have to apply for a complete driving permit. It takes about 3 weeks to process a new driving permit, but several drivers have put a car on the road and driven without any lessons or even a permit, and that is a big concern. Unregistered driving schools operate in the city, offering lessons and sometimes access to permits. It is these schools that are being faulted for several of the driver errors.
Yes, those are the major people causing the shortcuts. Those ones, if they can be eliminated, then at least step by step, the faking is going to be done.
Last year, police confiscated over 300 forged driving permits. Tougher road operations have now been put in place to arrest more unlicensed drivers.
People have no driving permits. People are driving with expired permits. People are driving out of class, and we have those people who are driving without. They have never acquired any permit. They are driving.
According to the Uganda Police traffic reports, over 3,600 people lost their lives in road traffic accidents last year. Ensuring that all drivers are trained and can legally use the road, they say, will help reduce the number of cases. Leon Senyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Time now for a short break. Coming up when we return. We take you on a journey through Cairo, a city famous for its rich history and culture. And Nigerian school children quit class on Friday to take part in tree planting for climate change.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Vietnam says it is deeply saddened after British authorities say they believe all 39 people found dead in a lorry were Vietnamese. Vietnam's foreign ministry said it was a serious humanitarian tragedy and sent its condolences to the victims' families. UK police say they believe all the people who died in the truck were Vietnamese, but their individual identities have not yet been confirmed. Our reporter Ollie Barrett has the details from London.
Essex police say they do now believe that all of the victims were Vietnamese, and they are in touch with a number of Vietnamese families thought to have lost loved ones. British police also in regular contact with Vietnamese authorities. The Vietnamese embassy here in London is saying that it is deeply saddened by the update from British police, and it says it will continue to coordinate with the Vietnamese government and also the British government with regards to supporting victims' families and also if any remains are required to be brought home. Now, the investigation into the tragedy continues in the UK, in Ireland and in Vietnam. In Vietnam, 2 people have been arrested over what is described as organising or brokering illegal immigration and have been charged on that basis. The Northern Irish driver of the lorry appeared in court on Monday, charged with 39 counts of manslaughter. We also have a man who was arrested in Dublin, in Ireland. Extradition proceedings are underway with regards to him. Police are also calling for 2 further suspects to hand themselves in. These are 2 brothers from Northern Ireland, named by police as Ronan and Christopher Hughes. They are wanted, according to British police, on suspicion of people trafficking and manslaughter. Ollie Barrett, CGTN, London.
Thousands of youth climate ambassadors in Nigeria have joined the global Friday for Future movement. The students left their classrooms to engage in practical climate action, from tree planting to recycling and organic farming. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam has more.
School kids in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, protesting against poor environmental practices. That has now snowballed into a massive movement here. Thousands of school children quit classes on Fridays for what has become the largest environmental campaign. 15-year-old frontline campaigner Chioma Udoka leads her colleagues on a path to secure their future, planting trees, and recycling plastics. But they've even gone a step further.
I want to create something that will cause a change in the present society today. I want to be a problem solver rather than just a consumer. I want to add something which nobody has ever added to the community before. So we came up with different ideas on how to manage waste and also make organic fertilizers.
The youngsters are inspired by Sweden's Greta Thunberg, the teenager who first launched the Friday for the Future movement. Now they want authorities to take issues of climate change more seriously.
I would like to see the government imposing laws and regulations on how they should help to reduce the cutting down that is indiscriminate felling of trees. They should also help to encourage those that have the ideas on how to put a stop to the global warming.
I think all over the world, including in Nigeria and my own country, Sweden, what is most important now is to really create awareness that this is a global threat that is threatening all of us, that climate change is real, it's happening now, and to make people aware of this, exactly what is happening here today, to make the youth and to make all of us aware and take actions jointly together.
More than 4 million students around the world have engaged in the global campaign, and it's inspiring many more to take concrete steps towards saving the planet and securing their future. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
The giraffe has been cited as critically endangered by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. While Kenya hosts 36% of Africa's giraffe population, numbers in the country have declined by 2/3 since the 1970s. And as conservationists explain, it will take great effort to restore those numbers and safeguard the animals.
This is probably his very first interaction with a live giraffe, and the child can barely contain his excitement. The enclosure at the Giraffe Center in Nairobi is one of the few places where visitors can interact freely with giraffes. And every weekday, school children troop in to feed the giraffes pellets and get closer to a species whose numbers are falling. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species has listed the giraffe as critically endangered. There are 3 subspecies of giraffes: the Rothschild giraffe, the Maasai giraffe, and the reticulated giraffe. According to the International Union of Conservation of Nature, the giraffe population has fallen by 40% over the past 3 decades. Today, there are only 100,000 giraffes across Africa. Kenya hosts 36% of the giraffe population in Africa, but its giraffe population has declined massively since the 1970s. There are many reasons for this. One is a loss of habitat. Long ago, when there were large tracts of dry uplands, forest, many giraffes roamed the earth. However, now those numbers are dwindling, and it is in fact due to the fact that there are fewer and fewer spaces such as this where giraffes can find sanctuary.
When there was population increase, you find that their habitat was destroyed for human settlement and cultivation, and that reduced their food range, so their population went down.
To address this, Kenya has attempted to move giraffes to enclosed areas, but enclosing them is also detrimental.
When you enclose the giraffes, you find that they have a limited food range, and during the dry spell, then they don't have dispersal land to go and get more browse.
The giraffe's endangerment has also been attributed to poaching, where giraffes are killed for their skins and hooves. The declining population is a problem that the African Fund for Endangered Wildlife is trying to counter. At its Giraffe Center, trainers teach communities to value and live peacefully with the creatures. Giraffes raised here are later relocated to safe areas.
We might not have giraffes in the wild in the near future, looking at the threats and looking at the requirement, because if a species again is in Appendix 2, require a close monitoring, like in Nakuru is basically a sanctuary for rhino, and now will now be a sanctuary for giraffes.
But as long as there are sanctuaries such as this, there is hope. Members of the public who visit can be taught the importance of conserving the environment and safeguarding the animals which thrive here. Bulkisa Nyabwa, CGTN.
Let's go to North Africa now, where CGTN's Yasser Hakim is on a journey through Cairo, a city that is famous for its rich history and culture, and one of the biggest on the African continent.
Even before you step foot on it, when you see the famous pyramids from up in the sky, then you know you've arrived to Cairo. As you move around, it's evident the capital city has a unique mix of history and culture.
The city under the name Cairo is 1,051 years old. The city itself exists for much longer. It had different names before, like Fustat during the Islamic Fatimid period and the name Aoun during the ancient Egypt. It is home to 3 civilizations: Coptic, Islamic, and Pharaonic. You can find it in the architecture and design of churches, mosques, temples and houses from each civilization. All these multiple heritages in one city makes it very unique.
There are dozens of museums and palaces all around Cairo. They display everything from arts, architecture and monuments of diverse cultures and rich history. Like most cosmopolitan cities, Cairo is overpopulated and overcrowded, with about 20 million inhabitants. The government has established small cities on the outskirts of the capital to move Egyptians out of Cairo.
People are already relocating to the modern cities like October City, 10th of Ramadan City, and the new capital. They want to live in quieter, more eco-friendly neighborhoods and at the same time lift the burden of Cairo.
There are ongoing projects as well to develop the city's infrastructure and restore its beauty.
The historic buildings being vacated will be transformed into museums or cultural centers. The rundown areas of the city, including downtown, will be developed into business districts, shopping centers, hotels and entertainment areas to make it more welcoming for tourists.
Soon, there will also be a new must-see attraction for any visitors to Cairo. It's the Grand Egyptian Museum, the largest in the world and with the most technologically advanced and innovative display of monuments. According to the specialized travel guide magazine Lonely Planet, Cairo is ranked 3rd in the best 10 cities worldwide in 2020. It's forecast to be a top destination for travelers next year. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Well, let's return now to our coverage of the Rugby World Cup final taking place in Japan. And it is turning out to be a nail-biting battle between South Africa and England. Let's see how fans are doing across the world. Starting, of course, in London, where CGTN's Ollie Barrett is standing by. Ollie, we're well over half-time now, of course, well into the second half of the game. How are fans there responding to the current scoreline?
Yeah, South Africa's still ahead 18-12 at this point, and while I am in London, there are actually more South African fans here in Isha Rugby Club than there are England fans, surprisingly. Hundreds of South African fans have come here to gather and watch the game together, the expat community getting together. They are very nervous at this point. Happy, of course, that they are in the lead, but I don't think there are any South African fans here who are counting any chickens just yet. A very tight game indeed, as many people were expecting. The England fans here are not pleased with their team's performance so far, but they also do still hold on to hope that there is enough time left to turn things around. But this event that we are coming to you from at Isha Rugby Club in Surrey really has a very African feel to it because of all the South African fans that are here. But they're not just here in numbers. They've had a braai going on. They've been selling biltong. They've been singing songs, so a very South African feel to this very English rugby club this Saturday.
Well, thanks, Ali. Let's turn now to South Africa itself. Julie Shire is watching the match in Johannesburg. Of course, South Africa in the lead, 18-12. Julie, what's the mood like where you are?
Lindy, it's going insane. Everyone here is hoping for this final. They really want the Boks to bring it back home, and it really is just seeing these people bite their nails and jump with emotion. And we all knew that it was going to be a kicking game, but now that South Africa is leading and we are almost there, I know that anything can happen, but these Springbok fans don't want anything else but a victory, and therefore it is very important that the boys back home who are giving it their most and playing with their hearts, that they bring it home.
Indeed, and not only for South Africa, but perhaps for the continent too. Now, South Africa and Namibia were the only two African countries in this World Cup, but of course, plenty of support from around the continent. Let's come here now to Kenya, where Mohammed Abubakar is watching the match in Nairobi, surrounded by fans. Mohammed, what's the mood like where you are?
Thank you, Linda. Amazing scenes here in the second half of this game. We're well into past the halfway of the second half, and South Africa still holding a 6-point lead here, cushion that is. But fans here are very happy that South Africa have managed to exploit England's weakness in the scrummings as well, getting those penalties in good areas so that they can convert those kicks. Believe it or not, the points that teams have been getting here are through penalty kicks still, so it's the one that's doing the tricks. But everyone here is so happy, and they're just 15 minutes away from celebrating South Africa's third Rugby World Cup trophy. That's if they manage to hold on.
It's going to be a nail-biting 15 minutes. Thank you so much, Mohammed Abubakar. Joining us there in Nairobi, Julie Shire, live with us in Johannesburg, and Ollie Barrett watching the game for us there in London. We will catch up with all three of them before the game ends, but for now, time for a short break.
Madagascar is one of the world's most important biodiversity hotspots. The island separated from all other landmasses 88 million years ago, leaving the abundant plant and animal life to thrive and evolve. Today, 90% of Madagascar's flora and fauna are found nowhere else on Earth. But the forests are under threat. Extreme poverty has driven local Malagasy to logging and slash-and-burn farming, permanently destroying vast tracts of natural forest. Endemic wildlife are killed for bushmeat by those desperate to survive and feed their families. Turning these destructive practices around will mean finding ways for locals to benefit from the natural environment. This is where Association Mitsinjo comes in. A team of dedicated locals like Justin Claude, who are working to bridge the divide between poverty and conservation to save the island's natural heritage.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start in Burkina Faso now, where the long-standing insurgency in the country has taken a heavy toll on the tourism sector. Tourists just aren't coming like before, and as well as aid workers, all this is weighing heavily on the economy.
A once popular tourist destination, Burkina Faso's city of Bobo-Dioulasse has an array of charms. It attracted thousands of tourists. But a top-end warning by Western embassies to travelers wanting to visit Burkina Faso has changed all this. It follows frequent jihadist attacks and raids across the country. The impact has been brutal for local businesses.
All I do is make fabrics. I don't really have any other work. But as there are no tourists, I have no choice but to help out with masonry work to earn cash for food and medicine for myself and my kids.
To be honest, we have lost everything. The number one priority is the staff's salaries, then the taxes. We can't even afford to host the Burkina tourist hub. We have lost Western visitors to jihadist threat.
In the past, tour guides could sometimes earn $167 in 2 days. But now, making the same amount in a period of 3 months is not even possible. The city's hotels have also emptied. Its heritage sites are quiet, and the souvenir shops shuttered. Statistics from the Ministry of Tourism show that hotels in the region only do a third of the business they did before the attacks. While there's still a little activity, Bobo's nightlife is certainly not what it was. Chomrono, CGTN.
The African Union has launched its new strategy on women's empowerment. This follows a meeting at its headquarters in Ethiopia to review achievements as well as which path to take towards gender equality across the continent. CGTN's Daniela Pearson reports.
It's been 25 years since the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. Since then, it's had a single purpose in mind: gender equality and the empowerment of all women everywhere.
In too many places, progress is still slow, it's fragmented, and it has not fundamentally transformed the lives of women and girls. Efforts for wage equality, for the inclusion of youth, and shifting norms are beacons of hope, but we need to do much more.
In the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, the 4th African Union Specialized Technical Committee on Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment is reviewing the latest findings. Women hold less than 25% of parliamentary seats and only 6% are heads of state and government.
The document will enable us to ensure we mobilize appropriate resources so as to promote gender equality and women empowerment in the continent.
Silencing the Guns by 2020 is one of the AU's flagship projects. The meeting emphasized that peace is not optional in Africa, and that women can play a vital role in creating and maintaining that peace.
Since we left Beijing, we have worked for peace on this continent, but we still have the voices of the guns. Let us call for the African leaders to stop the use of guns. That's what we need. We women are ready to work in a peaceful Africa.
Going forward, the committee agreed that it will come down to political will and financing to securing women's equality and empowerment across the continent. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
Experts have hailed China's governance practices, saying they offer direction for global development. This comes as the 19th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China concluded its 4th plenary session in Beijing on Thursday.
The system of socialism with Chinese characteristics and China's system for governance has been held as policies of strong vitality and huge strength.
China was very much divided. Its sovereignty was undermined before the establishment of the PRC. The Communist Party was able to bring unity among the people of China. And also because of its economic and political policies, millions of people were lifted out of poverty. Before the economic reforms that had happened in China during the 1980s and 90s, more poor people used to live in China. The poverty was absolute in many cases. So the PRC, under the leadership of the Communist Party, was able to bring the dignity of the Chinese people back to them, to make China one of the great powers, economic powers, and also military and political powers of the international system.
The world economy has seen increasing uncertainties for development, and China has been striving to enhance its capacity in all aspects, from economy, science and technology to education. The move has influenced many developed nations.
Today, many of top global brands, even US companies, European companies, produce their products in China. So China was successful, a kind of mixed economy policy was pursued, a policy which has a socialist character because the state has a role, the state has to provide services, the state has to build infrastructure, particularly to those places in the hinterland, the coastal territories of China. They were able to attract a lot of investment, they were able to develop. So the Chinese Communist Party and the PRC has to follow policies which are going to distribute economic resources to the entire country of China.
The Ethiopian scholar believes the system of socialism offers the developing countries an opportunity to learn and emulate.
The big lesson that it gives to the rest of the world, to developing countries, you don't need to import policies of economic reform from the West. That is, I think, the main lesson, the Chinese experience or policy of socialism with Chinese characters. It's flexibility, it's pragmatism, again, without losing sight of the importance of providing services to the people of China.
The systems in China have promoted democracy, maintained political stability, and pushed forward the country's development. Chom Wono, CGTN.
Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's coming up in your sports news up next. South Africa take a strong 25-12 lead against England in the Rugby World Cup.